with all, there we go. Whenever I have moved with all the Israelites, did I ever say to any of their rulers whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, why have you not built me a house of cedar? Verse number 8. Now then, tell my servant David, this is what the Lord Almighty says. I took you from the pasture. What does that mean? What is it, pasture? What is that? I took you from the pasture. What is that about? David was a shepherd, right? He was a shepherd before he became king, all right? So God says, I took you from the pasture, from tending the flock, and appointed you to rule over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you went. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have cut off all of your what? Enemies from before you. Now I will make your name great like the names of the greatest men of the earth, and I will provide a place for my people Israel, and I will plant them so that they can have a home and a home of their own, and no longer be disturbed. Wicked people will not oppress them anymore as they did at the beginning and have done ever since the time I appointed leaders over my people Israel. I will also give you rest from all of your enemies. The Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish, watch this, a house for you. And when your days are over and you rest from your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom. So what is God saying to him there? When you die, what's going to happen? One of your ancestors, your own flesh and blood, is going to succeed you, right? And I will establish his kingdom. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom, what? Forever. So that is important, right? So God says, I'm going to establish and put somebody on the throne that's related to you. And how long are they going to be there? Forever. So somebody that is a descendant of you is going to be on the throne forever. And so when we go back to our handout, David passes the what? Throne to Solomon based on the promise. Should be based on the promise that God made to him. And that promise is that he's going to have somebody on the throne forever. And so when we get to the book of Matthew and we read Matthew chapter 1, we discover that Jesus also falls into the line there of David. Okay? So right? Well, the forever one is Jesus. Right. The next one coming after David is who? Solomon. But the forever one that's going to be on the throne is Jesus, right? Because as the scripture says, the kingdom of Jesus will have what? No end. There you go. So the forever one is there. So now let's go to, so that is the established. That is the anchor. That's what's happening. That's what is going to carry us on. This promise that God makes to David because of David's faithfulness, that he's going to have somebody on the throne forever. So now let's go to 1 Kings. That's there. So now let's go to 1 Kings chapter 2. 1 Kings 2. All right. So God says to David, you're going to die, but I'm going to put somebody on the throne, your own flesh and blood, who's going to be Solomon. All right. And he's going to keep it up. Now let's go to 1 Kings chapter number 2. That's what God says to David. But David's not dead yet. All right. He says, when you do die, I'm going to put somebody on the throne that's going to take care of you. All right. So now in 1 Kings chapter 2, guess what happens? David dies and he gives Solomon a charge. All right. Now, this is what we are going to read here in 1 Kings chapter 2. I want to read David's charge to Solomon, and this is beginning at verse number 1. Okay. You see 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 1? Yes. All right, let's read there. When the time drew near for David to what? He gave this charge, for David to die, he gave this charge to Solomon his son. I'm about to go the way of all the earth. That means what? I'm about to die. All right. Very simple. I'm about to go the way of all the earth. So be strong and act like a man and observe what the what? Lord your God requires. Walk in what? Obedience to him, and keep his decrees and his commandments, his laws, his regulations, and as written in the laws of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. Remember that? That if your descendants watch how you live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their hearts and souls, you. Shh. What's that noise? It's a drill. Oh, okay, it's a drill team. I was like, what is that? I thought it was a child crying or something. That's the people, that's the kids outside. Okay, all right. Where do we? Oh, if your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all of their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel. Now, these are David's what? Last words to his son. All right. And what are they? What did he tell him? Be strong. Keep the commandments and be obedient. All right. Now I want you to stop for a moment, and I want you to think about. I want you to think with the person next to you about some last words that you would give to your child. Just talk to the adult next to you, to the adult next to you. What would you say? All right. What would you say would be last words you would give to your child? Give you a second more to kind of talk about that. Last words. What would be the last words? Now don't have. Now see there it go. Last words. Okay. All right. Okay. You have some time to talk about that. Who wants to share? Who wants to share last word? Go ahead, Sister Valerie. She said, "Pay your land taxes and do what? Keep what? Keep the promise and pay your land taxes." Okay, hey, because if you know what's gonna happen if you don't. It's gonna be gone. All right. Who else wants to share it? I wasn't expecting that one. We come in here. Go ahead, Bro Herbie. What'd you say? Live as brothers. Live as brothers. So you have two boys, and you would tell them to what? Live as brothers. What does that mean? Take care of each other, right? Look after one another. Those are some good last words. What would you say, Sister Joyce? Love. Love. Put God first with everything you do. Okay. Good. Who else wants to share? Always forgive. Why would those be last words? Why? Right. Right. Clear your own heart by forgiving others. Baby, whatever you do, forgive. Learn to be a forgiving person because it benefits you more than the person that you're forgiving. So, Sean?
Well, I have one son, so I would tell him he's not alone. God is always with him. Mm-hmm. And that it's very important for him to have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
A relationship with him.
Because now let's say this. Talking about death doesn't make anybody die, right? So we can be honest and talk about it as adults because it's coming. David said, God says, you are going to go the way of the earth. All right, so that's going to happen. So let's say that. So, but back to what you're saying, when you do experience grief, particularly for a parent or someone close to you, you do feel alone. You feel alone, because that was your parent. It makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel a pain. And you know what? People always talk about, some crosses you have to carry and can't nobody carry for you. That's one that you have to carry on your own. Right. So you're right. It does. And so you would want to tell them that you're not alone. Right. Remember your upbringing. Right. Remember the stuff that I told you. Right. Because it matters. Sister.
my daughter my policy or show her with my papers and stuff, and she told me that I don't have time for that right now.
Does any? You know they do. We do. We do need to know that, and that's happened with me, right? You know something about anybody? You know about that? Yeah. Would you like to share? Right. Right. Yeah. It's a real thing, right? And Bro Thomas just lost his mom, right? And you know, my mama, you know, when Daddy died, Mama tried to give me the stuff. And I was like, and let me say this. She really didn't even try. She gave it to my wife because she knew what I was going to say. She knew I was going to be like, you know. And, you know, and I will say in my defense, I experienced death a lot. So it wasn't like, I don't want to talk about it, you ain't going to never leave. But I was like, you know what, we'll deal with that. But to your point, you never know when you're going to have to deal with it. It's going to creep up on you. So it's better to be ready. And again, talking about it doesn't make it happen. You can't talk it up, right? Go ahead, Elder.
You're not going anywhere now.
You don't know that, right? Uh-huh. Yeah.
But death, I've seen the result of those who didn't plan for dying,
Uh-huh.
and I saw what happened after they died and the planning and the arrangement.
Right.
Mass confusion.
It does. Right.
Mass confusion because they dare not discuss it. It's a reality.
Yeah.
Or when you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, a person looks really, it's just a normal piece. They look fine. And there's no reason to expect anything's going to happen today. And then something happens today, and you're left without with your hands. What are you going to do? Right? And so David's last words to his son was, you know, honor God. The thing that got me through, if you hold to it, it'll get you through. Right? You know, honor God with your life. And Solomon does that until he doesn't, you know. And that's a reminder, you know, even though we pass these things on, sometimes they don't get it. Because everybody has to ultimately follow their own way and make their own decisions. But we can share with them what we have and what's gotten us. Anybody else want to share last words?
Like I always tell my grandchildren, I want you all to give your life to Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because when I get to heaven, I want to see all of you guys around me.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. So wake up and smell the coffee, roses, or whatever.
Yeah.
And go to God. Give your life to God.
It's a better quality of life.
Yeah,
It is.
He woke you up.
Mm-hmm.
And it costs you to get a job. Inhale and exhale. You can't do it on your own.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But sometimes they think I'm crazy about that.
They don't think you're crazy. They just think they got time. Right? That's what everybody thinks. They don't think you're crazy because they know who you are, but they just think they have time. And I'll just say this. Death will bring out parts of people that you didn't even know were there. Right? It'll make folks that were cool, calm, and collected go haywire. Right? The stress of it, but also because, and let's be honest, they were never the people you thought they were. You thought they were one way, but all of a while they were just kind of waiting for stuff to happen. And now that the real person kind of comes out. And as I was preparing for tonight, this came to mind. I was like, you know, these are David's last words, but what are ours to our children? You know, and depending on where you are with your family. And you know what? Let me say this: you ought to not just have last words for children, but your siblings too, right? What would you say to your siblings? Say it now. You know, particularly as you get older. Because it's not promised that you'll have those opportunities. If you're not a I love you family, that's okay. But whatever your equivalent is to let that person know you care about them, you need to go ahead and say that, right? Don't withhold affection. Don't hold grudges because, I mean, you know, we too old for that, right? So, yeah, all right, good deal. Let's keep going. 1 Kings chapter 5. In 1 Kings chapter 5, Solomon builds God a temple. Okay, that's a giveaway. Everybody know that. All right, here we go. According to 1 Kings chapter 9, let's go ahead to it. According to 1 Kings, let's go to 1 Kings 9, 15 through 28. 1 Kings 9, 15 through 28. 1 Kings 9, 15 through 28. What were some of Solomon's accomplishments? According to 1 Kings chapter 9, 15 through 28, what were some of Solomon's accomplishments? I'll read here. 1 Kings 9, 15 through 28. Here is the account of the forced labor that King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple in his own palace, the terraces and the walls of Jerusalem, and Hazar, Megiddo, and Gezer. So right here we see he built walls, terraces, and a palace. Okay, let's keep going down a little further. He built up the lower Beth Horon, Baalath and Tador in the desert. He built cities in the desert, as well as all the store cities and the towns. I'm just skipping around, verse 19, as well as all the store cities and the towns for his chariots and his horses, wherever he desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout all the territories he ruled. So he built stuff. Big empire of things that he built. There were still people left from the Amorites and the Hittites. This is verse 20. The Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. These peoples were not Israelites, and Solomon conscripted the descendants of all these people remaining in the land, whom the Israelites could not exterminate to serve as what? Slave labor, as is to this day. So Solomon got a big workforce. So he built cities. He built a big workforce. But Solomon did not make slaves of any of the Israelites, which of course was biblically against the law to do that. They were his fighting men, his government officials and his officers, his captains and his commanders and of his chariots and charioteers. So he built a big what? Army. Built a big army. They were also the chief officials in charge of Solomon's projects, 550 officials supervising those who did the work. So again, big empire that Solomon built. Now, according to 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 through 13, Solomon was also a what leader? Let's read that. Let's go to 1 Kings, next page, chapter 10. Look at what happens here. When the queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to God, she came to test Solomon with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan with camels and carrying spices and large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food on his table and the seatings of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, the cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was what? Overwhelmed. She said to the king, the report I heard in my own country, that's important, in my own country, about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told to me. The half is what? Never been told. All right. In wisdom and in wealth, you are far exceeding the report I heard. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. Never again were so many spices brought in as those that the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Now, he was wise, yeah, but Queen of Sheba was the leader of a foreign country. This was a political engagement. So he was also a great political leader as well, right? Phone ringing. They might. All right. So King Solomon was also a political leader, right? When she was bringing the money to him, she was bringing the resources so that they can develop a political empire as well, because he was a king and she was a queen, right? And their engagement was a political one. Now remember, why do you think that Solomon developed a political relationship with her? To build a big empire, right. To build a big empire, to support, in case Herbie's folk come to attack me, I got Sheba on my side. So Herbie's going to have to fight me and Sheba, right? So Solomon's wisdom was also administrative. He was wise to the talk, but he was also wise politically and administratively, all right? Now, so that's the fill-in. According to 1 Kings 10, 1 through 13, Solomon was also a political leader, all right? Now, according to 1 Kings 10, 14 through 29, Solomon had what? Splendor. Well, that's right up there, the little hand. I see that. I see where y'all saw that at. I see where you saw that at. All right, he had splendor. Let's keep going. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the reserves from the merchants and the traders and all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold and 3 minas of gold in each shield. The king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. So he had great wealth. You can put splendor there, and he also had great wealth. All right. So this is Solomon. All right. And he's doing well, right? Now he's finna go down, starting in verse number 11, in chapter 11. And we talked about this. Sally, come here. Sally, you know I love you. All right, here we go. 1 Kings chapter 11, 1 through 13. What was Solomon's downfall? Okay, now let's be clear. Let's be clear. Solomon's downfall was not women, because it wasn't the women's fault. It was Solomon's fault. Solomon's downfall was that he had no what? Starts with self-control, discipline, right? It's not their fault, right? I mean, I don't eat liver, so you can put liver in front of me, I'm not eating it, right? Now you put some ribeye in front of me, now we're going to have a problem, right? Women was his weakness. Solomon had an issue controlling himself when it came to ladies. Here we go. 1 Kings 11. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, the Hittites. Solomon, you're doing too much, man. Solomon, what's going on, man? You need to go to therapy, bruh. They were from the nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, you must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods. This is important. We must always remember that we fall to temptation. You think you're strong enough, you're not. All right? Birds of a feather flock together. If you lay with trash, it's going to get in your eye. I'm okay. I can do. There's a lot of people who were doing well with their addictions. They got back with the wrong crowd and it went back down again. And they're starting over from scratch, right? We always assume that we are spiritually stronger than we really are, right? And it's not that we're bad. It's just that we're human. All right? So, nevertheless, it says, nevertheless, Solomon held fast with them in love. Now, Solomon didn't love all these women, but sometimes we don't know the difference between love and other stuff. All right. He had 700. You see that? Did you see that? You heard that? You saw that since verse 700. He had 700 wives of royal birth. Now remember, you notice where it says royal birth. Some of these were not love. Some of these were political agreements. I'm going to marry the king of Somerville's daughter, right? So I can be a part with the Somerville group. But he still was in relationship with them, right? And he still got into the intermingling of their relationship, the intermingling of the gods, right? That's why God always told them to stay out of politics, because it's going to draw you away, right? So you know, I don't want y'all to think that these people dated and they walked along the Sea of Galilee holding hands. No, it wasn't nothing like that. It was a political arrangement, but still they were close in an intimate relationship, and they drew Solomon away. Okay? Go ahead. What did it say? And Solomon grew old. Oh, yeah. Oh, now, wait a minute. Let's talk about these concubines. No, you're right. In verse number 3, he had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. Now, the political relationship with the wives was one thing. The concubines was just because it's solid. They're solid. Yeah, the concubines were different. They were just, it's solid. You know, what you want, solid? You want some onions and some eggs? I can make you that, right? Whatever, the political things were one, but the concubines were just for his own lustful pleasure. Okay, all right. Verse 5. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods. And please understand, as Solomon grew older, he did not pick older wives. You hear me? As he grew older, he didn't pick older wives. He kept younger women around him, right? Huh? Wait a minute, Sister Joyce. Okay, sister. He kept younger women around him because that's what they did, right? He picked the old women, sorry. All right, so as he grew older, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David, his father, had been. He allowed the Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Amorites. I've told you the reason that Molech is called detestable was because those who follow Molech sacrificed children. Right? So they were detest. But Solomon just turned about, okay, baby. All right. They didn't pay any attention. All right. Verse 6. So Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely, as David his father had done. So what was Solomon's downfall? I don't want you to say it was women, because it was Solomon's lack of self-control. Lack of self-control. All right. Because it wasn't the women's fault. It was, and you could put lust, but as long as it's his lust, Solomon's lust. All right. Let's go to verse 9. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had forbidden Solomon to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. So the Lord said to Solomon, since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, listen to this. Nevertheless, for the sake of David, your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son, yet I will not tear the whole kingdom from him, but will give him one tribe for the sake of David, my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I've chosen. Remember, God made a promise to David. You're going to have somebody on the throne. And so God didn't take everything. He left him a little bit for David, right? Because, you can still be a benefit to your children after you're gone, right? How do we do that? How do we become a blessing to our children and our families after we're gone?
We leave things to him, property.
We leave material things. How else? How did David benefit his father? How did David benefit Solomon after David was gone? Huh? He gave him instruction. Yeah. So not only do we give them physical benefits, but we also give them nuggets of truth. We give them proper teaching, good examples, right? I learned from my dad hard work. My dad was he was a retired veteran, 100% disabled. He didn't have to do any work, but he still went to work because he was like, men need work. Do something, right? You don't sit around the house. And even when I wanted to sit around, it's summertime. Can I just sit around? Nope. Got to get up and go, right? And I look back at when I look back at my life now, it's not a coincidence that as soon as I could work, I always did work. I've never not worked, right? Even when I graduated from college in 99. I couldn't go to seminary until the summer of 2000. So I was at home for like half of the year from January to May. And I was like, well, what do I do? Well, I got to go to work. I had to go work with my dad I ended up teaching ninth grade pre-algebra and algebra 1 at Wingfield High School back in Jackson. My uncle was the ROTC instructor there. And so they needed a math teacher. There was this particular class, they had like 3 teachers. And I was the 4th, so you can imagine what that was like. And it was in a portable. Kids were jumping out the window. It was crazy. And I was at that time, I had just graduated from college, so I had grown pretty much. I mean, you get to be about 21, 22, you don't get any taller. So I was about the height I am now. Half the kids was almost as tall, not taller than me, looking at me like, I was like, jump. Because this ain't no career for me, bro. So you finna lose some teeth, talking. But they were, bowing up, and because they had all these teachers. And the class and they were just like, we need somebody to finish a year. Would you do it? And I was like, oh, sure, like a nut. And that was an interesting time. I developed a deep appreciation for those who work in education. But the point is, I've always worked, and I connected to something my dad and my mom gave me, right? And so the examples we set, the conversations that we have, watch this, and don't have in front of them, because every conversation they don't need to hear you have, right, makes a difference. And so there we go with Solomon. So Solomon's life fell apart because Solomon did not follow in his father's steps in honoring God. I will also say, we say that Solomon didn't follow in his father's steps, but not only that, but God also spoke to Solomon directly, God's self. So even if your parents, or even if you don't have a mentor, God will talk to you directly about what you need to do. You can't say, well, nobody told me. No, the Bible says that the heavens declare the glory of God. You ought to know there's something bigger than you around here. Anybody who thinks that this world was not created by some intelligent being or some design, I don't know how anybody, you don't have to believe in a Christian God, but surely you don't think all this is an accident. No. I mean, it's not an accident that the ocean just don't come up here and drown us all. What do you think? Well, it's gravity. Well, where did gravity come from? The moon. Where did the moon come from? Or the space? So it has to go back to something. I just don't think it's a big bang that created all of this, right? So even if David had not spoken to Solomon, Solomon was still accountable to God because God talked to Solomon. God's self appeared to Solomon a couple times, all right? So now, the scripture says, again, that God is going to take away the throne from Solomon, from Solomon's descendant, all right? Now, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 11. We're going to talk about how this plays itself out, and then we'll be done. We'll read this portion, and then you have this rest of this sheet to fill out for homework and also the back to read each day, all right? 1 Kings 11, starting at 26. This is how it all falls apart. All right. And we've looked at some of this early on when we did Bible 101, but you have to understand this again to understand 2 Kings. Here we go. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 26. Also who? Jeroboam, son of Naboth, rebelled against the king. The king being who? Solomon. All right. He was one of Solomon's officials, an Ephraimite from Zeradah, and his mother was a widow named Zurah. Here is the account of how he rebelled against Solomon. Solomon had built the terraces and had filled in the gaps in the wall, the city of David, his father. The city of David is Jerusalem, okay? Now Jeroboam was a man of standing, and when Solomon saw how well the young man did his work, he put him in charge of the whole what? Labor force of the tribes of Joseph. About that time, Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem, and Ahijah, the prophet of Shiloh, met him on the way wearing a what? New cloak. The two of them were alone out in the country, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, put 10 pieces for yourself, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I am going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand and give you 10 tribes. Remember, we just read that, right? All right. And give you 10 tribes. But for the sake of my servant David and the city of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of the tribes of Israel, he will have one tribe. I will do this because they have forsaken me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites, and have not walked in obedience to me, nor done what is right in my eyes, nor kept my decrees and laws, as David, Solomon's father, did. But I would not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of David, my servant, whom I chose, and who what? Obeyed my commands and decrees. I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give you 10 tribes. I will give one tribe to his son, so that David, my servant, may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem. Remember the promise we read back in 2 Samuel, right? So that David will always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I chose to put my name. However, as for you, I will take you, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. You will be a king over Israel. If you do whatever I command you, this is the same thing he tells everybody. If you do what I command you and walk in what? Obedience to me, and do what is right in my eyes by obeying my decrees and my commands, as David, my servant, did, I will be with you. I will build you a dynasty as enduring as the one I built for David, and will give Israel to you. I will humble David's descendants because of this, but not forever. All right. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, all right, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt, to Shishak, the king, and stayed there until Solomon's death. Verse 41. As for the other events of Solomon's reign, all he did and his wisdom he displayed, are they not written in the book of the annals of Solomon? Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all of Israel for what? 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, his father, and Rehoboam, his son, succeeded him. Okay? So what's the story of Jeroboam? What did we just read? He gets 10 of the tribes, right? And who tries to kill him? Solomon tries to kill him. Apparently Solomon hears what's coming to him, and Solomon tries to kill him. And that's how all of it begins to kind of fall apart for Solomon. It falls apart when he commits the sin, but now we see the unfolding of the kingdom, all right? And as you'll read, we just answered the next question. Read 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 41 through 43. Who took reign in Solomon's kingdom? His son who? Rehoboam. His son Rehoboam took over after Solomon, all right? Jeroboam was the one that rebelled, all right? And really, Jeroboam didn't rebel. God gave him, said, this is coming to you, right? And it just played itself out that way, all right? So now your homework is to finish that last question, and each day read a portion of 2 Kings. Some of it takes you to 1 Kings, so you can get the context, and then bring these answers back, and we will discuss these on next week. And we'll discuss these next week, all right? Read first, who took the reign of in Solomon's place? That was who? Rehoboam, his son. Rehoboam, all right? You got everything, Sister Griffon? The answer before that, who rebelled against Solomon and why? Jeroboam. And technically he didn't, Jeroboam rebelled, right? Jeroboam rebelled. And why did he rebel? God made him a promise, but what happened? Solomon tried to kill him. All right? And you can't try to kill people and they like you. All right? Doesn't work like that. All right. So you want to look here, finish this last question on the front page, and then each day look at these scriptures and then answer the questions, and we'll talk about these when we get back on next week. Friday, I'll be in revival at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Red Top, where Eugene Richardson is the pastor. So if you want to join us there, you can. It starts at 7 o'clock, and we will have the bus going to take the men, but I don't know what bus they're going to be taking. Well, they got to take the small bus because the other bus has an issue. So we'll be in revival at what church? In what community? Red Top. When I was texting a worship that, I didn't know if it was one word or two. Is it one word or two? I forgot. It's 2 words. Red Top. All right. But y'all say it so fast. Red Top. I didn't know. But it's not too far. And why don't you come out and support Elder Eugene and be there with us? The men are going with me. It's going to be a great time. 7 o'clock. You don't. You don't drive at night. Oh. Your crossword puzzle is also homework. Crossword puzzle is your homework, and then your daily reading in 1 Samuel is your homework. In 2 Kings is your homework. I don't want you to get bored. Let's take a moment and give. Let's take a moment to give Sister Virginia a hand. She did great today. You did a great job. All right. Receive the blessing. God, we find ourselves grateful for our opportunity to study your word, and even tonight, tons of lessons. Last words matter, as we saw David to his son Solomon, and even though Solomon didn't follow in his way totally, at least he couldn't say he didn't hear it. We see the downfall of Solomon, who loses self-control, who has a great amount of wealth, but who loses control when it comes to lust. God, protect us from that demonic spirit that would cause us to use our body for things that are not in line with your word and will. God, we see the consequences of sin, God, and which is the kingdom torn away from us, the eternal and long-term challenges that come when we don't follow you, how we can affect generations after us because we fall by the wayside. Keep us honest and humble. And God, we pray that you bless us as we leave from this place, but never from your presence. In Jesus' name, amen. Go in peace, friends. Oh, King and Queen contest is Saturday.